Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to uncover the hidden blueprint that powers our language, the thing that lets us understand each other. It's called logical form, and it's this amazing, invisible architecture that transforms a simple string of words into deep, structured meaning.
Okay, let's just dive right in with the super simple sentence. Scarlet poked mustard. I mean, you read that and you just get it instantly. You know who did the poking and you know who got poked. But have you ever stopped to wonder how? How does our brain put that meaning together so fast? What's the system working under the hood that makes it all so crystal clear? Well, the answer is this incredible concept called logical form. And it's not really about the words you see on the surface. It's about the deep underlying structure that gives those words their power. So yeah, think of it like an invisible blueprint. It connects a sentence's grammar to its precise, logical meaning. It's really the engine that makes the whole thing run. Now, this idea of a mental blueprint for language, it didn't just pop up out of thin air. Nope, it actually evolved over decades. And it all started with a really fundamental shift in how philosophers and linguists thought about actions and, the world they describe. Let's trace that journey.
So way back when, philosophers, especially in the analytic tradition, they were on this quest for perfect clarity. They wanted to use logic to dissect language, to strip away all the fuzzy, ambiguous parts of everyday speech. Their goal was to find a pure, formal structure that perfectly mirrored how our thoughts are actually structured.
So this whole quest took a massive turn in the 1960s. You had early philosophers focusing on arguments, and then thinkers like Quine were trying to wrap their heads around the just endless creativity of language. But then, a philosopher named Donald Davidson came along, and he had a truly game-changing insight. Davidson's move was absolutely brilliant. He argued that a sentence like "Scarlet poked mustard" isn't just about a subject and an object. He said no, its logical form is actually built around a central event, the act of poking itself. Now that might sound like a small change, but it was profound. It unlocked this rich layer of meaning we can infer, that a poking event happened, that Scarlet was the one doing it, and that mustard was the one affected by it. Okay, so if sentences have this deep, event-based structure, how does our brain actually build it, right? How do we get from a bunch of individual words to this complex blueprint for meaning? Well, that whole process is guided by a really core principle in modern linguistics. It all boils down to something called the principle of compositionality. And I know it sounds complicated, but the idea itself is just beautiful and simple. Think about it like a machine. Its function is totally determined by its individual parts and, crucially, how they're all put together. Well, it's the same for a sentence. Its meaning isn't some kind of magic, it's systematically built from the meanings of its words and the rules of grammar.
This process is perfectly laid out by the work of the logician Richard Montague. He came up with this really precise three-step system to map a sentence's structure directly onto its meaning. So, first you categorize the words. This is a noun, that's a verb. Then you translate each of those parts into a formal language, almost like a logic ease. And finally, you combine those logical bits according to the rules of grammar, building the final meaning piece by predictable piece.
And this crucial connection point has a name, the syntax-semantics interface. Honestly, this is where the real magic happens. It's this theoretical space where the grammatical structure of a sentence, its tree of nouns and verbs and phrases, is formally translated into its logical form. That's what lets us figure out what it actually means. But, and there's always a but, right? This blueprint model, as elegant as it is, kind of ran into a problem. See, meaning isn't always fixed and static, like a photograph. It actually changes with the flow of a conversation, and that presented a whole new, really exciting challenge for this framework. This challenge gave rise to something called dynamic semantics. The older, static view basically saw a sentence's job as being either true or false. It was like a snapshot of reality. But the dynamic view says, hold on a second. A sentence's main role is to do something. It's an instruction to update the information in a conversation, to change what we know and what we're talking about from one moment to the next. I mean, think about it. If I say, a woman walked in, she sat down, how do you know who she is? The old static snapshot model really struggles with that, because the meaning of that second sentence depends completely on the first one. This kind of thing requires a model where the meaning blueprint itself can adapt and evolve, keeping track of the changing context of the whole conversation. So, what all this means is that our blueprint for language, this thing we're calling logical form, it actually has to do two very different but totally related jobs at the exact same time.
It has to be both incredibly rigid and structured, but also amazingly flexible.
Yeah, so researchers today really see logical form as having this dual nature. On one hand, it has a logical role, serving the cold, hard rules of inference and deduction. But on the other hand, it has a linguistic role, serving semantics by showing how meaning is built from our innate rules of grammar. It's really the ultimate bridge connecting pure logic to the beautiful, sometimes messy world of human language.
And that brings us right to the cutting edge of this research. The ongoing quest now is to bring these two roles together. The goal is to build a single, elegant theory, one comprehensive design that can explain both the fixed, compositional structure of a sentence and its dynamic, context-changing power. That is basically the holy grail of modern semantics.
Which leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought to chew on. This whole study of logical form, it started as a way to understand the structure of facts and thoughts. So if we can truly and completely map the intricate blueprint of our language, are we in fact taking the first real step toward mapping the very blueprint of human thought itself? Makes you wonder, doesn't it?